Good morning. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the MTSU Board of Trustees Audit and Compliance Committee. Thank you all for being here this morning. Ms. Zimmerman, could you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Trustee Adams. Trustee Johnston.
Here.
Trustee Karbowiak.
Here.
Trustee Smith.
Here.
Madam Chair, we do have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Zimmerman. This morning we have two items for action. The first being the approval of the minutes from the meeting of November 3rd, 2018. The minutes have been provided to you previously. I hope you've had a chance to review them. Are there any comments with respect to the minutes?
Move for approval.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Ms. Zimmerman, I think we have.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item is the approval of certain policy revisions to Policy 10 and Policy 12. Ms. Janae Stevens.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before you in your booklets are revisions to two of our institutional policies. The first, Policy 10, is our Ethics and Code of Conduct policy, and it aligns with MTSU's core values and community values. There are a few changes that we've made, namely, we have begun annual mandatory ethics training for all employees, and that also includes student workers. We've also included some of the provisions that are in the Healthy Workplace Act that the state enacted in TCA Section 51-50, which discusses abusive conduct in the workplace. And we thought that that was important to provide in this Ethics and Code of Conduct policy. We also provided greater clarity about the use of computer technology, as well as provided some information about who does the investigations. And so my office is tasked with doing initial ethics investigations for the university in collaboration and with recommendations to the Office of Human Resources, the Office of the University Counsel, and also the Office of the Audit and Consulting Services. So that's the first policy that you have, and you have both a clean version and a red line version of the policy. For Policy 12, conflict of interest, we've had for some time, and we've made a few revisions to that policy. The change in the responsible office for Policy 12 has transferred from the Office of the University Counsel to my Office of Compliance and Enterprise Risk Management. We've also provided greater clarity to employees about how to disclose conflicts of interest, and we've revised our conflict of interest disclosure. We actually do annual disclosure distributions, and that happens by the Office of Human Resources, and it's usually put out in March. And finally, we also did some revisions to our conflict of interest checklist for faculty who have authored works that they are utilizing in class, and as well as some clarity regarding conflicts of interest that involve research. And so those conflicts, if it involves research, we refer those cases to the Office of Research and Sponsored Programs and/or the Division of Academic Affairs. So those are the revisions to those two policies.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. Are there any questions from the committee with respect to the revisions to the policy? Being none, Ms. Zimmerman, do we need a roll call vote on this, or is a voice vote sufficient?
A voice vote is fine.
Do I have a motion to approve the revisions to the two policies as described by Ms. Stevens?
So moved.
Second? Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The motion is carried. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is an information sharing, report on conflict of interest disclosures for 2018. Ms. Stevens?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before you in your booklets, you have a copy of our annual report by the Conflict of Interest Committee. And as a reminder, the members of the Conflict of Interest Committee include myself, the Chief Audit Executive, Brenda Burkhart, our University Counsel, Ms. Heidi Zimmerman, and also our Vice President for Business and Finance, Mr. Alan Thomas. And so this year, so for 2018, we actually reviewed 16 cases, so that's up a bit from 2017. And as you can see from the report, a great many of those conflict of interest cases are being managed or in mitigation, and we feel confident that those management and mitigation plans are going well. And we had one case in which we did refer to academic affairs in the Office of Research and Sponsored Programs. And the report was approved and signed by all of the members of the committee. And the process that we have continues to work well.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. Are there any questions with respect to her report? If there being none, thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, members of the committee.
Moving now to the next item on the agenda, also an information sharing item, the report on compliance with public records policy. Ms. Brenda Burkhart. Brenda?
The public sharing will be Heidi's agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry?
The public records reporting will be done by Heidi.
Oh, by Heidi, okay, sorry.
Did you want to deal with that item presently, Madam Chair?
Sure.
Or did you want to go to the President's Statement of Disclosure?
Okay, why don't we, since that will be your report, correct?
Yes, the review of the President's Statement of
So
Disclosure.
why don't we, that's a great idea. Let's move to that agenda item, the President's report. Thank you.
Okay. The MTSU's conflict of interest policy requires the President's disclosure form to be evaluated by the Board of Trustees or a duly appointed committee. Since the Audit and Compliance Committee is charged with assisting the board with oversight of standards of conduct and compliance with regulatory requirements, Dr. McPhee's 2019 Disclosure of Interest form is presented for the committee's review. There were no changes from the disclosures made in 2018, and the forms are a public record on the Tennessee Ethics Commission webpage. That concludes my report.
So this is behind tab 4, as I understand, correct?
Correct.
The report, I'm a little confused about the report because it says under office held or sought, incumbent president, college or university, governed by Board of Regents. Is that not right? Do you see the comment on that report?
Yes, I will defer to Kim, who has a comment.
Yeah, like Chloe, I assist Dr. McPhee with that every year, and that form is produced by the state, and obviously they just haven't updated. That was our only choice in the drop-down box at this time.
So I guess the question would be, do we want to send a note to somebody to let them know that they need to update their choices because the form's not right?
Right on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we will.
Okay, perfect. All right. So then we'll move to the report on compliance with public records policy.
Yes,
Thank
thank you. So we have and have had for many years a public records policy. That's our institutional policy 120. And part of the policy requires an annual report to the Board of Trustees concerning our compliance. And so that information is found on page 63 through a sort of a matrix where we have tracked the requests that we have obtained, those that we have denied, and those that we have provided the information. Let me just say, although it looks like we deny numerous requests, those are typically based on a lack of Tennessee citizenship. Our policy requires proof of such, as is given to us by statute, that discretion. And so what typically happens is if we get a request and the individual cannot establish that he or she is a Tennessee citizen, we'll deny it. And what we find often happens is that person then finds a Tennessee citizen who makes the same request, and we can comply with that request. So some of these are, I'm sure, duplicate requests. Just by point of information, you may know that the legislature last year required that we, in addition to having a policy, that we have a rule. You all approved that rule back in December, and that will be going before the joint Senate and House Government Operations Committee in May for approval.
So the request, the record request received in 18, do you happen to know just off the top of your head how that compares to what was requested in 17?
I don't. We tend to, I think, each year get more requests than the year before, and I suspect that trend will continue.
Is there can the university charge a fee for
Yes.
delivery of those requests? Because I would think that there's an administrative burden, which is, it's great for transparency, but there's also just the practicality of
Right.
having to spend time pulling stuff together.
Sure. The policy, actually, you all just approved in December. We have a fee waiver provision where I believe it's if the amount of fees that would have been charged is under $25, that amount will be, or it's either 20 or 25, that amount will be waived. We also had a new provision added where if the number of pages to be copied is under 25, that an individual may copy using their cell phone or camera. But we also, as you state, there is quite a cost involved with a number of public records requests. For instance, we might get a request for all emails to and from a particular person for a number of years. Well, we have to get ITD involved to go through all those and collect them. And because there are may contain confidential information, and particularly being an institution of higher education, we have student information that might be contained in those emails. We have to go through each of those emails very carefully and meticulously to redact anything that we shouldn't release. And so the policy and the rule does provide that we will comply with the best practices that have been put forth by the Office of Open Records Counsel. And that does allow us to charge for producing copies of documents.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Zimmerman? Thank you for your report. Moving to the next information sharing items, the results of external reviews by Ms. Burkhart.
Since the last committee meeting, the Comptroller of the Treasury has issued 2 audit reports for MTSU. The financial and compliance audit for the year ended June 30th, 2018 included an unmodified opinion. Included in the meeting materials is the audit highlights page from that audit report, which highlights the audit report contains no findings. I want to thank the business office personnel who prepared the financial statements and management for their work in maintaining good internal controls. No state audit findings is always good news.
Indeed.
And state audit also completed the required NCAA agreed upon procedures review for fiscal year 2018, and there were no reportable issues in that report. And that concludes my report concerning external reviews.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Next item on the agenda for information sharing, quarterly reports, results of internal audit reports under tab 7. Ms. Burkhart again.
Since the last committee meeting, the following 2 audit reports have been issued with no reportable issues. Audit of the Office of the President for fiscal year 2018 and audit of football ticket sales and paid attendance for fall 2018. The report for the special review of Interfraternity Council's bank account was issued and included recommendations to improve compliance with the existing bylaws and procedures, to improve the cash management process, and to consider a policy revision. Management concurred with all recommendation and is moving forward with corrective action. And also included in the meeting materials is the status of the current audit plan. That concludes my quarterly report on the results of internal audit reports.
Are there any questions for Ms. Burkhart regarding her report? There being none, I believe that this will conclude the public portion of the Audit and Compliance meeting. We will now be moving into executive session. The portion of the committee meeting concerning public matters is complete. We will go into executive session for discussion concerning audits and investigations. No business other than these items will be considered during this non-public session. So therefore, the public meeting of the Audit and Compliance Committee is hereby adjourned. I must now ask that everyone other than the board members, the president, our chief audit executive, the assistant director for audit and consulting services, and our legal counsel, please leave the room.